Shalom, everyone, and welcome to this episode of ReBoot the Root. ReBoot the Root is about getting you to re-examine, to reboot, to reset, to take a second look at your theology, at your doctrine, to see if your beliefs line up with the Bible. So I think it's important for us to have a theology that is biblically based, that is based upon truth. I believe that the truth does matter. And so because truth does matter, this is why I put together these series of teachings to help us together go on a journey to test everything that we believe against Scripture. And if we find something really just isn't so because we've been taught at church or we've been taught by a specific Bible teacher, then we need to really think about what are we going to do with that newfound information, that newfound truth. So the answer is that once you come to truth, you have to do something with it. So we're on this journey of truth here at ReBoot the Root to take a look at subjects that matter because truth does matter. And so I'm glad you've taken the time to join me on another great series of truth finding, fact finding, error destroying mission. And so in this series, it's just like all the other series. They're all controversial. They all cause us to be stretched a little bit. They may make us a little uncomfortable. They may cause us to dig a little bit into truth and re-examine what we believe. And we may find ourselves at the end of the day, we may find ourselves vacating some theology and doctrinal ideas that we felt comfortable with, and now we have to stretch ourselves and reinvent ourselves, so to speak. But we'll find that not all of our ideas are thrown out, but they are reinvented, or they're relearned, or they're revisited. And some ideas, they just don't hold water anymore. We just have to get rid of them. So anyway, that's ReBoot the Root, and glad you've joined me here for episode 4 of Looking for the Antichrist. So last episode, I was talking to you about what the Muslim religion was looking at in Muslim messianism, and we were looking at how the Muslim religion and Islam looks at their prophetic events of their coming Messiah, of their coming world to come. And we will find that actually what they're looking for and what we're looking for is actually one and the same. Because while they're looking for their Messiah is actually our Antichrist, and vice versa. So we're going to continue to look at this thing about Muslim messianism, looking at who their Messiah is. So we were, in last episode, we were saying that according to answeringislam.org, they say that the Mahdi is believed to be a future Muslim world leader who will not only rule over the Islamic world, but also the non-Muslim world as well. So their intent is to rule the entire world. And is that not what the Antichrist in our Bibles teaches us will be? It'll be a person that will usher in a one world government. They will usher in a one world religion. They will usher in this idea that we must worship their God, which will be Allah, and they will institute forced religion upon the world. And so this continue on with answeringislam.org, the Caliph in Islam may be viewed somewhat as the Pope of the Muslims. The Caliph is viewed also as the vice regent for Allah on earth. In the book Islamic Messianism, Muslims believe in a great world religious leader. His title is called Mahdi, and he will be the great leader of the world, who will be God on earth for Allah. The title the title Mahdi means the guided one. He will be considered the long-awaited savior. The Mahdi will come to restore all things under the divine guidance and to restore the true Islamic faith, which will bring true guidance that will bring social order. So that's where we were at in last episode, and now we are continuing on looking at who this Mahdi be. He will be a universal leader. So we're going to look at another source. It's called From the Muslim Messiah. He will rule all Muslims. The Muslim world is calling for the restoration of the Islamic Caliphate, which is their leadership. He would be the equivalent of a pope to the Catholics. I believe this is to unite both sects of Islam, Sunni, and Shiite. If this happens, all Muslims would be required to unite under the Caliphate. And just recap, Caliphate is a type of leadership model. From the book Doomsday Portents and Prophecies, it says Mahdi will not only rule over the Muslims, but be ruler over all the world. He is said to lead a world revolution that will establish a new Islamic world order throughout the entire earth. Mahdi will fight against the enemies of the Muslims and be victorious. So we're looking at this Islamic world leader, this world domination, this religious domination that is going to be put upon the earth, and both Islamic and non-Islamic worshippers will be forced to come under this caliphate type of world leadership. And from the writers Muhammad Isa and Muhammad Arif, they write he will reappear on the appointed day, and then he will fight against the forces of evil, lead a world revolution, and set up a new world order. He is the precursor of the victory of the truth and the fall of tyrants. He heralds the end of injustice. Mahdi is Allah's clear signs, which will soon be evident to everyone. So I think it's very interesting that while the arrival of the Mahdi and the Islamic prophecies are coming into place, the biblical prophecies of our Bible are also coming into place. So they're all coming in together, happening together. One is of an Islamic nature and one is of a messianic nature. They're both working together to bring in what will happen. The Last Apocalypse, this is a book, The Last Apocalypse, a Islamic perspective, and the End Times and the Mahdi. These are these two books. They say that Mahdi's way of accomplishing this revolution will include multiple military campaigns or holy wars. Mahdi will receive a pledge of allegiance as caliph for Muslims. Many battles will be between Muslims and disbelievers during Mahdi's reign. Mahdi will invade all places east to west. AnsweringIslam.org will tell us about what this will look like when we see the army of the black flags. What is the army of the black flags, you say? Well, AnsweringIslam.org tells us that Mahdi's ascendancy to power is said to be preceded by an army from the east who will be carrying black flags, or these banners of war. Black flags coming from Khorasan will signify the appearance of the Mahdi is nigh. Khorasan is in today's Iran, and some scholars have said that this hadith means when black flags appear from Central Asia, then the appearance of Mahdi is imminent. So this bit of information comes to us from AnsweringIslam.org. We're going to continue to talk a little bit now about what these Islamic black flags are. From AnsweringIslam.org, they say in Islam there are two flags. One is white and one is black. Written across both flags in Arabic are the words, "There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger." The black flag is called Ar-Rayah and is used by the Muslim army. It's called the flag of jihad and is carried into battle. AnsweringIslam.org continues to talk to us about how these black flags will be used in conquering Israel. They say tradition pictures Mahdi as joining the army of Muslims carrying black flags. Mahdi will then lead his army to Israel and reconquer it for Islam. The Jews will be slaughtered until very few remain, and Jerusalem will become the location of the Mahdi's rule over all the earth, So now we need to talk a little bit about the proposed power of the Mahdi. What kind of power will this Mahdi have in the earth as the Antichrist? And we're going to turn again to another source, answeringislam.org. They tell us, it is said that Mahdi will have control over the wind and the rain and the crops. Under the Mahdi's rule, the world will live in prosperity. Islamic tradition relates that Muhammad once said this: in the last days of Ummah, which is the universal Islamic community, the Mahdi will appear. Allah will give him power over the wind and the rain and the earth will produce its foliage. He'll give away wealth profusely. Flocks will be in abundance, and the Ummah, the Islamic community, will be large and honored. AnswerinGislam.org and Sahih Hakim Mustarak says, it is said, because of all the numerous benefits Mahdi will bring, it is said that all the inhabitants of the earth will be possessed with a deep love of him. So we need to turn our attention now to something that may sound very familiar to some of us who have studied prophecy, to find that it also fits in with Islamic prophecy. And we're going to talk about the 7-year peace agreement. And so we're going to turn a little bit to this book called Sunan Abu Dawud. And it says in that book, Mahdi will make a 7-year peace agreement with the Romans. It will be mediated specifically through a Jew of the lineage of Aaron, the high priest. During this time will be the reign of the Mahdi. So when we're looking at this thing about the Romans, this includes the Catholic Church and Christianity, that this 7-year peace agreement is going to be made between Rome, which is the Catholic Church, and Christianity. There will be a 7-year peace agreement between them and Islam. And so I believe what's happening here is we're going to have the invention of a mixed seed called Chrislam. Okay, so this is going to be mediated between Islam and Rome, and they will be using a Levite high priest. So the Muslims believe that the white horse that we read about in our book of Revelations is talking about their Mahdi. Let's take a look at what that means. Al-Mahdi and the End of Time book says, I find Mahdi recorded in the books of the prophets. For instance, the book of Revelation says, and I saw and behold a white horse. He that sat on him went forth conquering to conquer. So what's important to identify about this is, while there may be a white horse carrying Mahdi, there is a white horse in Revelations that talks about there is a white horse coming with a rider with one crown, and he has a bow in his hand. This is not the Messiah of our Bible. This is not the returning Messiah of Yeshua or Jesus. This is the Mahdi. This is the Antichrist, because the conquering king of the universe is one who comes on a white horse with a sword in his hand and with many crowns on his head. So these are two different characters. One is the Antichrist coming, and then followed later by the real Messiah. In the same book, Al-Mahdi and the End of Time, it says, it is clear that this man is the Mahdi who will ride the white horse and judge by the Quran, and with whom will be men with marks of prostration on their foreheads. So there's this mark of prostration that will be on their foreheads that comes from when Muslims, they bow and pray 5 times a day. So this is what happens when you bow your head and you're prostrated. So we need to take a look at some really incredible things. I guess incredible is the word you could use, relating to the miraculous archaeologist, which is written by Muhammad Isat and Muhammad Arif. This idea that they suggest about the miraculous archaeologist that says, Mahdi will produce some undiscovered scrolls and even the Ark of the Covenant. He will find the Torah and the Gospels in a town called Antioch. He will guide people to a mountain in Syria from which he will bring out volumes of the Torah to refute the Jews. At the hands of the Mahdi, the Ark of the Covenant will be brought forth, and at his hands a group of Jews will convert. So this is very interesting to find out what will happen in their prophecies that seem to lead credence to how they will mislead not only Jews but Christians as well. They will mislead the Jews with the Torah, and they'll mislead the Christians with the newfound Gospels. So let's take a look at the recap of this Muslim Mahdi in Islamic messianism. The Mahdi is a descendant of Muhammad, and he is a devout Muslim. He will be an unparalleled spiritual, political, and military world leader. He will emerge after a period of great turmoil and suffering on the earth. During the time of the tribulation, we will see this emerging of the Antichrist in the world, and this Antichrist will obviously be the Islamic Mahdi. He will come to establish justice and righteousness throughout the world. He will be the Caliph and the Imam, and so this Imam will be kind of like the Pope, who is the representative of Allah on the earth. And so he will be the Caliph and Imam of Muslims worldwide. He will lead a world revolution and will establish a new world order. And so this new world order will also institute a one world religion. He will lead a military action against all those who oppose him. He will invade countries. He will make a 7-year peace treaty with Rome through a Jew of priestly lineage. He will conquer Israel for Islam and establish a new Islamic world headquarters from Jerusalem. And this Muslim Mahdi, he will rule for 7 years and cause Islam to be the only religion practiced on earth. And he appears riding on a white horse. He will discover some previously undiscovered biblical manuscripts. Then he will use to argue with Jews and cause some Jews to convert to Islam. He will rediscover the Ark of the Covenant and have supernatural powers from Allah, possessing large amounts of wealth and distributing them. He will be loved by all the people of the earth as if they were possessed. So looking at the Bible, we need to take a look at what the Muslim Messiah will really look like. He will lead a military action against all who oppose him. In Daniel chapter 7, we read, "After that, in my vision at night I looked, and there before me was a fourth beast, terrifying and frightening and very powerful. It had large iron teeth. It crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. It was different from all of the former beasts." So he is different from the rest of these beasts, I believe, because it's all about worship to him and him alone. There's no money involved. There's no fame involved, no fortune involved, just worship. And isn't that what the Antichrist is? The Antichrist is of a satanic nature, of a satanic empire. And the satanic empire has always been about worship of the beast, worship of Hasatan. So this religious reign of the Antichrist with the Islamic identity, it is of an Ottoman empire which had 10 horns, and this represents the 10 toes of the Nebuchadnezzar statue that we were talking about in last episode. And this 10 toes represents the 10 nations of the Ottoman Empire. So while I was thinking about the horns, according to Daniel chapter 7, verses 23, 24. While I was thinking about the horns, there before me was another horn, which will be Mahdi, or the Antichrist. He has a little horn, which is one king, which came out among them. This would be coming out of the Ottoman Empire. And there of the first horns, or the kings, were rooted up before it. This horn, or king, had eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth that spoke boastfully. So this sounds like the Antichrist that's coming to the world. This would be the Islamic Mahdi. So we're looking at this thing that's going to happen, which is an Antichrist reign. The Antichrist will gain control over 3 of the 10 nations and eventually gain control over all 10 nations for the beast empire. This will be the revived Ottoman Empire, who will then devour the whole earth, trampling it down and crushing it. Revelations chapter 13, verses 2 through 8, it says, "And I saw a beast coming out of the sea. He had 10 horns with 7 heads with 10 crowns. On his horns and on each head a blasphemous name. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like those of a bear and a mouth like a lion." So let's tear apart what these parts in this Revelation scripture mean for identifying who the Antichrist is. So when it says they saw a beast coming out of the sea, that is the wicked people. That would be the Muslims. And this beast that had 10 horns, this is going to be the Ottoman Empire with their 7 heads, or authorities. And they're going to have 10 rulers and on each of the horns, there's going to be nations. And on each head, there's going to be authority with a blasphemous name, which would be Allah. Revelations 13, 2 through 8 says, "The dragon, which is Satan, gave the beast, which is the Antichrist, his power and his throne. Men worshiped the dragon because he gave his authority to the beast, which is the Antichrist, and asked who is like him, who can make war with him. He will sit in the temple of God." This is the abomination of desolation. "He will call himself God, rule from the Temple Mount in Jerusalem." And this is where God's holy house is. Mahdi wants everyone to worship him and no other. He will deceive with flattering words to lead people to worship him. He will target Jews and Christians alike to convert. So let's take a look at Zechariah chapter 14, verse 2. "I will gather all nations to Jerusalem to fight against it. The city will be captured, the houses ransacked, and the women raped. Half the city will go into exile, but the rest of the people who will surrender will not be taken from the city." So let's turn to Matthew chapter 24 and look at what this means about setting up his throne. And this is going to lead us to a great prophetic event. So in Matthew 24, it says, "So when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains." So this is talking about the abomination of desolation, where the Islamic Messiah will come in there and he'll demand worship to him. He will set up his throne inside the temple at Jerusalem. GotQuestions.org gives us some more information about what this abomination of desolation is. An abomination is something that causes disgust or hatred, and desolation is a state of complete emptiness, of destruction. Jesus warned that something or someone that people detested would stand in the temple someday. We take the futuristic view, according to GotQuestions.org, which sees the abomination of desolation prophecy as still future. In our view, Jesus was referring to the Antichrist, who in the end times will establish a covenant with Israel for 7 years and then break it by doing something similar to what Antiochus Epiphanes did in the temple. Continue on, gotquestions.org says, Daniel's prophecies about the abomination of desolation seem to have at least a partial fulfillment in 167 BC, when a Greek ruler by the name of Antiochus IV desecrated the temple in Jerusalem. He set up an altar to Zeus over the altar of burnt offering, and he sacrificed a pig on the altar. So this is very interesting that we have arrived here, because if you've watched my teaching about the lights of Hanukkah, we talk about this abomination of desolation event that actually happened back in the within the last couple of hundred years of the remaining BC era. So if you want to learn more about this, watch that teaching called The Lights of Hanukkah. Well, for now, I think this is a good place to say let's stop at this episode 4 of Looking for the Antichrist, and I want to invite you to come back for episode 5 as we continue to identify who the Antichrist is. So this is ReBoot the Root saying shalom, and look forward to visiting with you for episode 5 of Looking for the Antichrist. Shalom.